You're listening to Accounted For, the Canadian podcast that explores the intangibles of every career. I'm your host, Daniel Lee. Hello. Welcome back to Accounted For, everyone. Happy Wednesday. And Happy New Year as well. This is the first podcast episode for 2020, I believe it should be. And as it is 2020, I would definitely love to ask all of you very humbly, with hat in hand, to help the podcast grow by telling a good friend of yours or friends, if you have many, who may be thinking about taking an unconventional career journey of their own, or they've already decided to do it, and you think listening to all these fascinating stories being shared with my guests could be of value to them in ways of support, inspiration, guidance, whatnot. It's a great way for you to look great as a good friend, but also a way to help that individual go on their own journey and also grow the platform as well. And it's a win-win-win for everyone. So that would be really appreciated on behalf of myself. And if you want to be more involved in the community, definitely check out my weekly newsletter, omdventures.com, and that's how you can stay in the loop on my journey, where I exclusively just talk about what happens on a week-to-week basis on the newsletter, and also share everything: the podcasts, the essays, the things I learned in the week newsletter, all that stuff. And so, check it all out at omdventures.com. And now to the actual conversation. Today's conversation is with Jim Elli. Jim is a powerlifting coach and marketing manager of Reactive Training Systems. I'm going to call it RTS from now on. RTS is an online coaching company that leverages its founder, Mike Tucherer's method of auto-regulated strength training. And they've trained multiple world champion powerlifters in the process. After reading about Mike's work and following some of RTS's world level powerlifters, I personally signed up to work with RTS for the last few years as I rehabbed back from my own knee surgery and wanted to get into competitive shape once again and become stronger than I was before. But today's conversation isn't about my journey with RTS, but actually about my coach Jim's journey. And we go through Jim's journey of setting up his own online coaching practice prior to RTS, how he dealt with imposter syndrome as a business major who became a powerlifting coach, how he moved from running his own coaching company to join RTS, which was his dream team company as well at the time, and the entrepreneurial journey of being a remote online powerlifting coach, and how it's not as always glamorous as it may sound. And so we go into all the nitty-gritty details on that as well. So for those of you who are non-health science folks but are passionate in sports and helping others, this may actually be right up your alley. But even if you aren't, it'll still be a story that can inspire you to find the thing you love and do whatever it takes to make it work, because that's what Jim has done for himself. And so without further ado, here's my conversation with Jim. Hey everyone, welcome back to Accounted For. Today in the podcast, I'm joined by Jim Elli. Hey Jim, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Hey Dan, thanks for having me.
Jim here is the powerlifting coach and marketing manager at Reactive Training Systems. And so Jim, for the audience members who may not be familiar with Reactive Training Systems, and specifically people who may not be familiar with the world of powerlifting, to keep that as a caveat, how would you explain what the company does?
So Reactive Training Systems is at its core an online powerlifting coaching company. Our primary function as a company is to strengthen aspiring powerlifters and kind of maximize their abilities as lifters through intelligent programming and coaching design. But then we're also a powerlifting educational platform company where we also want to teach as many coaches as we can and share the knowledge and experiences that we've kind of gathered over. I think this will be our 11th year as a company. Founded by Mike Tucherer, by the way. I'm not the founder of the company, but I've been working with RTS for, this will be my 5th or 6th year. Anyway, we coach and educate and share our experiences. And we've really gathered a lot over the last few years. And actually, like right now, we're kind of launching the next quarter of the RTS Classroom, which is our like staple educational platform. And then we have the, coaching, and that's all year, all the time.
Awesome. Yeah, and so the caveat for the listeners is that, Jim here was my powerlifting coach, and I've actually been part of the Reactive Training Systems team as well. So just keep in mind, I might be a little biased in favor of like what he does and what the company does as well. Just as like a disclaimer, in case people go that I'm too biased at some points. But Jim, so where are we? Where are you interviewing out of right now? Like, this is our first, is my first remote podcast interview, and especially done so because, you get to travel the world and coach and do everything really remotely. So I'm curious, where are you based out of right now?
Yeah, so right now I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's where I grew up and where my family is from, which is funny because most of when I've been, coaching and working with you, literally any country in the world I could be in at any given time. But that obviously gets a bit, it's fun for a while, but, especially as like a business focused person, like you start thinking about like, how do you get a really established schedule, and how do I design my life in a way that's really productive? Well, if I'm traveling every week, which for a while I was, like every week in a new place, it's like, geez, I'm going to stay here and be where my family is. And then occasionally I'll travel instead of like having that be a thing.
Yeah. And you mentioned how, when you have like a business, a business mind, a business background, you gravitate towards the desire for structure, desire for systems to be in place. And so, yeah, like, for someone who's a powerlifting coach, you don't come from a kinesiology or health science background. You studied business at Ohio State University. How did that go? And like, what was the intention when you first went to university? Was it to just major in like some kind of business field and wear a suit or something?
Yeah, no. So it's interesting because secretly I was using college as a way to kind of redefine myself. I think a lot of people do. Their parents are like, you're going to go to, college and become a doctor or get, become an engineer. And like for me, the intention was like engineering at first. I did pretty well in school. I just had a preference for science and, math. And at least I was good at it, at least in the high school level and what it meant to be good in high school. And then, I started taking some engineering classes, but I did really well on like my test scores, and I did well in like on paper, I looked like a premier candidate for like an honors course, an honors engineering course, or major really. And I'm like, yeah, I'm so smart. Like I can do everything right away, right off the bat, just hit the ground running. But it's not like the same. It's not the same in college. Anyone that's been there knows that the way that they educate isn't about passing tests. They tend to, at least at Ohio State, and maybe I don't know, but especially in engineering, their intention is to get you to think in a way that helps you with your job, not just, you passed the test, good job. And I wasn't really ready for that at first. I wasn't ready for that when I was a freshman. I thought I could just do the same things that I was doing in high school to get by, studying last second, just cramming as much as I could. And like with engineering, once you get behind, you're not, you're screwed because everything is building on top of each other. So like I started this engineering class, this honors engineering class, and we were doing coding. It was like the main thing was teaching you how to learn code. But it was the honors course, so they expect you to pick it up quick and then move on to the next coding language. So like we started with Excel, like just basic Excel functions. I'm like, oh, this is hard. And then like I would like kind of get my handle on it, maybe if there was a test on it, I'd get like a B. But then they would switch that week that I felt like kind of okay at it to the next language, and like, cool, you got it, you've perfected it. I'm like, no, and so then they're like, now we're doing CSS or C, like C, and then C plus, and is there C plus plus? I don't know. I didn't do well. It hit me in the face. And on top of that, like that was really difficult for me. And on top of that, I was taking like honors physics and honors calculus. And I'm like, I'm good at these on their own, once at a time, not all 3 courses that are like top level thinking all the time. It was so overwhelming actually, because it was just really, really overwhelming. And they were really encouraging that, like, come on, you can do it. Like, you, even though every sign is telling you that you shouldn't be in this course, they're like, no, come on, keep going. I'm like, I'm failing these tests. I'm failing. Like, I don't think I can do this. Like, I mean, maybe I can, but like, there's more to this. Like, if I get an average of a C- in my courses, no one's going to hire me. Like, this isn't going to be good. So I had to make like the tough decision. And so like first semester, my ending GPA was a 1.5.
Oh, Jesus.
So bad. It's like the worst ever. I mean, they're like, okay, if you want to major in engineering, you have a minimum of a 3.0 GPA. Like you need a 3.0 to have to elect into a major. So I got on academic probation my first semester, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do that again, because at best I have to get straight A's in all of those courses just to get my grade point average to a point where I'm not kicked out of school. So in my mind, I wasn't going to stay longer in school. That was never something I wanted to do. So I switched into a bunch of general electives for a while, and then I was like, well, so first of all, the shift from engineering to general electives was like, I can't believe people are paying $20,000 a year for gen eds, like, or general electives. Like, this is so simple. I mean, it's very like, just pass the test. And anyway, I shifted out of that, figured out I want to do some business stuff. Like, that sounds like more exciting, and I think I can do well, especially because most of my preference was being socially engaged with people. And that's why I think I was struggling in engineering, because I wanted to be with the 60,000 students that were at school. I didn't want to be stuck in my room just studying engineering all day, So yeah, anyway, I started shifting into kind of some more business stuff. And while I was taking easier courses, I was like, man, I'm broke. Like, I'm not making any money right now. And I hated feeling like I needed money from everyone. Like, my parents, they're really supportive and it was awesome, but I also wanted to start early, becoming more financially independent. And I think the funniest, so actually thinking about this, I have a funny story, because I think the reason I got into business was because I got almost sucked into a pyramid scheme. Because they target me. Like, I'm their ideal person, like someone who's like struggling in school, doesn't know what their future is going to look like, feels like they're going to fail. All of a sudden there's this pyramid scheme that was going to get you BMWs, women, and money. And I'm like, yeah. Luckily, my dad was like, I told my dad about it, and he's like, hey, so here's the thing. That's a pyramid scheme. No one makes money. You're an idiot. And I'm like, no, I'm not an idiot. I can do this. And I was like willing to like invest so much time into potentially like scamming all my friends into buying I think it was, what do they sell? Energy drinks? Yeah, I think it was energy drinks.
Was it Herbalife or like Amway or?
It was Vemo.
Okay.
Vema.
Okay, not familiar with that one, but I've been approached for pyramid schemes before too. So yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And it's like, the thing that was crazy was they allowed all these people on campus to like, they like rented out these meeting rooms, and so it makes it seem really legit. And then at the same time, they had this big conference in Columbus where like all these people were like, look at how awesome this product is, and this business model is fail proof. So eventually I was like, well, I went to the meeting actually, and I looked around and I talked to the people, and every single person there wasn't even attending Ohio State. There was like 2 people at OSU, and the rest of them were like working at McDonald's and had no other options, at least in their mind. And like, this was like obviously a better option than McDonald's for them. It's $7 an hour. Like, why wouldn't you at least try? Whereas for me, I'm like, I think I can try something a little bit more that's in my lane. And I was always into lifting since I was 12. And a lot of small businesses were starting up in the realm of like online coaching for bodybuilding, just like nutrition coaching. Powerlifting coaching was something that I started seeing, and I just kind of started to dip my feet in that area, because if I could put all this mental focus on potentially a pyramid scheme, what can I do with like what's online coaching? What's that? Maybe I could do something, in that area.
And what year was this when like coaching was getting bigger online? Around when was this?
It's 2013, 2014.
Okay. Wow.
I mean, it was slowly building in popularity, probably 2012.
Yeah.
I don't know any powerlifting coaches that were well known. I mean, RTS started in 2008. So, I mean, technically it was a thing, but I think RTS was like the first online powerlifting coaching company.
And so then for you, like you said, you started lifting at the age of 12. Like, were you competing in powerlifting as of then? Like, how did you get into it? Was it just an athletic family background?
Powerlifting wasn't something I knew about until I got to university. But when I was 12, my dad had a bench press in our basement. And I just remember like my dad was muscular, and I was like, man, that's cool. Like he had like, I remember his pecs were big, and I'm like, I don't know, people tend to admire some kind of figure. And my dad was that person for me when I was younger, and still today. But it's like, I want to be strong. Can I be strong? Like I'm 12, but can I lift weights? Like, what would that be like? And my dad was hesitant at first, like the kid is going to get hurt. So luckily we only had a bench press and we had like a Bowflex, so I was like, he got comfortable pretty easily with me doing that, because we started light, we started with something easy, and he was always spotting me. And then slowly, year after year, I got stronger on bench and pull downs, and, kind of that just progressed each year into me exploring new options of training. And then, I don't know, so I was lifting pretty consistently, like 4 or 5 days a week since I was probably 15, like was when I started taking it seriously in terms of like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym with my parents as many times of the week as I can, because I couldn't drive yet. Then I turned 16, I could drive. I got my license, and I'm like, sweet, I'm going to go to the gym every day that I can. If it's cardio, if it's whatever, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to learn, and I'm going to get big, and I'm going to get jacked, and I'm going to get so many girls. And then I went to like university with kind of that habit already in place, and I was already going to the gym 4 or 5 times a week in uni. And I was approached by the powerlifting club at Ohio State, and they were like, hey man, have you ever considered powerlifting? Like, I see you squatting and benching and deadlifting. That's what powerlifting is. Do you want to, help volunteer? Like, you can join our club. And I was like, yes, I never had that in Minnesota. Like, anytime I would train in Minnesota, all my friends are like, I hate training. I can't believe you do this for fun. Like, I do this as a punishment when I don't do my sport correctly. Like their coach would make them go to the gym. And I'm like, that's the only thing I wanted to do. I wasn't super athletic. I'd always get hurt in track. I used to run track in high school and always have like hip flexor issues, and I wasn't that fast. So I'm like, how would I just stay in the gym and be hurt? I'm like, oh, I'm hurt. I can't run, but I can leg press and squat. No issues, So yeah, anyway, the people at Ohio State were like, let's get you in here and just kind of, you can join the club, you can come train with us. And I really fell in love with that community that I had, to some degree, but it was nice to have people to train with that were doing something similar that felt really foreign, at least at the time. Like, there was 5 of us, like 10 of us max for a while. And I remember one time they were like, okay, so we have this competition we need your help at. I'm like, I don't know what that means. What do you mean help? And I'm like, but yeah, okay, I'll do it. And so they picked me up on like a Saturday morning at like 4:30 a.m., drove me down to this competition. I still didn't know what I was doing. And then they're like, so you're going to spot and load for this competition. I'm like, okay, that's a lot of weight. Like, these people were strong. And long story short, I did that thing, forgot about it, kind of, I was like, that's hard. I never want to do that again. I really hated spotting and loading, but I wanted to compete because I saw how strong they were. I want to be this person walking up to the platform. I really like this part of it. Then there was a YouTube video that Johnny Candido had. You know Johnny Candido?
Yeah. He's the guy that makes the 6-week Candida programs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really big, like, YouTuber powerlifter. And I was in his thumbnail, and someone showed me that I was in this thumbnail of this video that had like 30,000 views. And I was like, what am I doing there? Like, what is this? There's a YouTuber that does this that I am somehow connected to? Like, what? I was spotting him
Really?
in his meet, and I was in the thumbnail of this video, and I'm like, who's this Johnny? Like, because I remember when I was at the meet, I remember this guy Johnny. I remember his name. I remember what he looked like. I remember he walked on a platform, and I thought his legs looked like tree trunks, and I'm like, how is this guy so thick? But he was like 5'6". You know, he is 5'6", and I'm only 5'9", but still, like, he was so wide and small and just dense. But he's really smart, and like his YouTube videos are super informative, and he's really funny and like quirky. And I just got sucked in even more because, one, I had this weird connection to this famous YouTuber, and I was like, why is this guy famous, and do people care about this other than me? Like 30,000 people do. So anyway, that kind of started this like rapid evolution for me in powerlifting and wanting to get really good at it, because that's just how I am. Once I find something that I like, I get pretty obsessed with it and want to share it with people. Like, I usually get into things where I can express it around others. And powerlifting was that kind of next step for me.
And so how did you transition from there, where, you know, now you're obsessed with powerlifting, and then to eventually just becoming a powerlifting coach with, you know, Mike at the RTS team?
Yeah, so I mean, like I said before, I kind of decided, like, if I had all this energy for a multi-level marketing company, I don't know what I'm going to do with that energy. It's not going to be an MLM. I want to start a coaching company. I've always been pretty good at teaching people how to lift, because I would help my sister out. I'd help all my friends out whenever they came. And I paid a lot of attention to like technique for myself. And I was always recording myself in the gym, which was really taboo for a while. Like, everyone was like, what are you doing with that camera?
That's true. Like, back in the day, like, everyone thought you were weird. Like, now I think it's normal now because of Instagram. But yeah, like, I remember back in like 2011, 2012, I'm taking a video and people are like, you can't do that. You can't take videos in here.
Yeah, and I'm like, and I would always hide it, you know, and I get yelled at, and sometimes I'm like, well, I need to do this, because the thing was, what I would do is I would send my videos to bodybuilding.com forums and have like my friends on bodybuilding.com look at my technique and tell me what to improve on. You know, I don't know who these guys are, but for whatever reason, I trusted them, you know, and so then I became much more aware of like what kind of feedback is helpful, because a bunch of people would give me feedback on my own lifts. And sometimes it was helpful. Sometimes it was actually like, it just made me feel bad, you know? So that gave me really good insight, at least on, okay, now what feedback is important to me? If it's important to me, it's probably important to other people that are looking for the same thing. And so I'd go and help my sister, and I'd help friends who would like found me online. They'd send me videos of their squats and their lifts. And I'm like, this is what you need to do. You know, it was very one-dimensional back then. Like, this is how things are done. Classic Dunning-Kruger effect. But yeah, and so then I was like, well, a lot of people started contacting me like in the gym and then online, because I started posting about my lifting. And then I was also like, I want to capitalize on this now, because I have a 1.5 GPA and I need to have a plan by the time I get out of college. And if I don't have a plan, I don't know what I'm going to do. And for whatever reason, this online coaching thing was screaming my name. So I started my own thing. I called it High Fly Fitness. It was mostly like a Gen Pop, like, online coaching company that I started slowly. You know, I hired a business coach who was going to help me with like, well, how do you monetize on stuff? I had no idea. How do I get someone that I don't know from the internet to send me money for a thing that I do for free anyway? You know? And I was like, well, Yeah, whatever. I paid him. It was so cheap. I was paid him like $20 a month, and he helped me set up a website. He encouraged me to start making YouTube videos. He helped me get over a lot of those barriers that most people have with anything that they're starting out at. Because, I mean, obviously, I was feeling like, man, who's going to pay me? Like, why would someone pay me money? And like feeling like bad about asking, and then like setting up a website. And then really the hardest part, I think, at first for me was putting up YouTube videos, because it's like I sucked at it like so bad. I mean, you can look at my channel, it's still up there. I kind of use it as like a reference, so I can show people like my progression of the skill of making YouTube videos, and I'm still improving. But back then I watched them all the time. They're so horrible. It's cringy. Like, I went to like a lake and I didn't have a microphone, so like it's in camera microphone, and like there's planes going over the camera, and it's like it's at the lake, so it's really windy, and like you can hear the water, you can hear me, and there's like people, and it's like so bad. But that got me going. Like, and that's what my business coach at the time said, like, just start, because you're going to suck anyway. You're not going to make, you don't make money right away anyway, but you're not going to ever make money. You're never going to turn this into a business if you can't jump that first hurdle. So I started just jumping through as many loops as I had to, or hoops as I had to, until I got my first paying client. The suggestion from my business coach was work with people for free until you get comfortable with what that experience is like. And then usually if you're doing a good job, those people recommend you to like one of their friends at least. And, you know, if it's much easier to close on a warm lead than a cold lead. So I think my first lead was warm. And then I had a bunch of cold leads that I would actually like call from Facebook groups. Just say like, hey man, I saw that you wanted a coach, and I'm a coach. So what do you want? What can I do for you? You know, stuff like that.
Wow. And so I'm guessing these are like all like lifting oriented like Facebook groups. So you just cold message people and be like, hey, I can help you out.
Well, yeah. So it was really easy. Like, honestly, once I figured out what I needed to do, which was be active in the groups, add value in these groups, send lifting videos of myself, talk about things, respond to people's questions that they did have help with. And then eventually in the comments of these threads, people would be like, I'm looking for a coach. Do you know any of them? And then they just saw that I was adding value, and they didn't know I was the coach. So then I'd message them privately and say, hey, I saw that you were looking for a coach. I'm a coach. I actually do that. It's something that I do. Do you want to hop on a Skype call and we can talk about it?
Wow. And how did you get over we talked about this earlier before we actually did the recording on like the imposter syndrome. You mentioned that with like the nutrition element, but early on when you're actually trying to help people in terms of getting stronger and like coaching and strength training, and like specifically even in powerlifting, when you don't come from this like education background of health sciences, like how did you get over that, and what was it like actually dealing with it in the beginning, and how did you get over it?
So yeah, I mean, at first I had most of my imposter syndrome came in the beginning from like, what if people think I'm stupid? What if people think the things I say are dumb? And a lot of the way I dealt with it was just talk about things that other people had already talked about and just use my own spin on it. And, at the time I thought, man, I'm being so witty. These ideas are so original. Like, I'm so good at talking about these things. So like for the YouTube focus, there's imposter syndrome kind of every different aspect. Like there's imposter syndrome in YouTube, there's imposter syndrome in the actual coaching relationship, and then there's like imposter syndrome for like different aspects, so like with nutrition and training. But I think the one I felt the most was putting myself out there on YouTube. When it came to working with individuals, I never worked with anyone that I didn't think I could help. It was like I'd already helped people like the people that I would reach out to. And for a while, that was kind of my game, was I can't feel like I'm an imposter if I know I've helped other people like this and I've done it for free. And that's, I think, what really helped me was I was helping people for free and they were responding really well. So I immediately got that positive feedback that I was good enough. I never felt like I needed to be the best because, and this is like one of the dark side aspects of coaching, is that there's a lot of coaches that are bullshitting, that are talking about things that they shouldn't be, and they're lying, actively lying, and they know they're lying, and they're doing really well. So for me, I was like, I'm not lying to anyone. And even if I'm not the best, I'm giving the information that I have available to me and doing the best that I can with it. And I was 18. Like, the fact that some 45-year-old wanted to work with me, I didn't need to be more than I was. Like, I just had to be professional. I just had to make sure I was listening to them and figuring out, like, what is it that they actually need from me and how can I help them, versus I need to make sure that they think I'm smart. Like, I didn't. I just had to ask, like, hey, you're the one looking for a coach. What is it that you need from me? And then if I can provide that, close. If I can't provide it, I would always have an option where I'd say, hey, actually, I'm not really into bodybuilding. I haven't ever put someone through a show. But one, we can work together and see how it goes. And my prices are pretty low, so usually that wasn't a big deal. Like, I started at, like, my first client paid me $27 a month. So it's like, I talk to him every day, right? There's enough of I have more leverage there if something goes wrong than I do if it's higher price point, at least internally, so a lot of times I'd say, like, look, I haven't worked with anyone in that way, but I think I can help you. If I can't and it doesn't go well, here's another solution. Here's someone else I know that is really good. They charge a bit more, but we have that option. So yeah, I think that's kind of the way I got over that part of the imposter syndrome. Is I never worked with anyone at first where I didn't think I could help them.
And how did you develop, like, your kind of strength philosophy in terms of how to develop training protocols and stuff? Because so my experience, having been powerlifting for a long time, I constantly have friends, right, who come and ask me for, hey Dan, how to get stronger? What should I do? How should I start? And the way I usually just tell them programs I've done. I'll tell them, oh, I've done, like the 5x5 starting strength for like 2 years. So how would you do that for 2 years? Or do like Mad Cows or like Bill Starr's 3x3 for like 2 years? And these are just kind of like programs I just give to people as, like, are you medium level, beginner level, that kind of way. How did you develop, like, your training philosophy? Or did you do the thing where you kind of use someone else's program and use that as a backdrop to just slowly develop your stuff out?
I think I did a lot of stealing, in that I would take something that I knew to be work and then make it mine. That's what I mean by stealing. It's like, I don't borrow them. I don't borrow ideas. I steal them and make them mine. So with something like starting strength, okay, what are the problems a lot of people have with starting strength? It's too simple. It's not a lot of variety. Okay, well, what would happen if I made it mine and then added some other exercises that might be better or might be, more enjoyable for this individual that I'm working with? What about some, and I only do these with programs that I liked. And I'd never steal a structure that I thought was stupid. And that was an initial flaw of mine, to be fair, because now I do a lot of, like, okay, this structure I don't like. It doesn't really align with my values, but how can I take the bits from that would align? But yeah, so I do a lot of that, like, start from programs that have shown results and then add them and kind of make them mine. The thing I always had problems with was, how do I design a program for an athlete online and give them the tools that they need to progress without having them, like, depend on me to tell them exactly what weight to use? And, one solution for that is, like, well, you can write percentages so that they can just kind of plug and play for themselves. But I never understood, like, well, how do I know what percentage to use? And, like, what if that's too hard for them that day? And, how am I supposed to know that that's the thing to do? And so I was always struggling with that. And it's also really, really time intensive. And also I wanted to add some, make sure that the lifter felt competent in what they were doing as well. And that's when I found out about auto-regulation, or like the concept of auto-regulation, in that while you're in training, you can make decisions on fly based on how you're feeling and how you're actually performing, with your warm-up sets and with your, just some of that feedback. So YouTube was where I found it. I found it on YouTube, because the thing that's great about YouTube is that people are there to share as much as they can, because ultimately they have kind of a similar business model that I did when I started on Facebook, where they need to give you the value to show you that they have something to say and that they have authority. And Izzy Navarez from Powerlifting to Win had this huge long series of videos where he analyzed every single program that I'd ever heard of, plus some more programs. And I remember he did this review on Reactive Training Systems, it was like the 9-week generalized intermediate program. And I'm like, man, he was ecstatic about it. I remember him saying, like, it is the best program. Everything is perfect. Like, everything about his program design and his tapering strategies and like all these principles are locked in. And I'm like, okay, this is a solution. Auto-regulation sounds awesome. How do I steal that and make it mine? And he awesomely wrote a free ebook on auto-regulation. And I was like, man, that's sweet. I know how to do everything now.
Oh, yeah, Mike's book on auto-regulation, right?
Well, funny enough, Izzy wrote an ebook, which basically was an advanced, or like not even advanced, it was his own take on Mike's book, the Reactive Training Manual. I didn't know that at the time, because I didn't read the Reactive Training Manual, because it was $35, and Izzy's was a free ebook on his website. But it didn't answer everything, and it didn't get all the, like, it was a bit off. There's some aspects of it that I was still confused about. And then I did buy the RTS training manual at some point, and it seemed to just answer so many of these questions that philosophically I was like at a loss for. How do you coach people online if you're not there in person? How do you get them to put the right weight on the bar? I never thought percentages made sense, because I know that I don't stick to a certain weight. When I went to the gym, I'd put what I wanted on the bar that felt good. Like, that's always how I trained. I was never like, okay, today I must hit this weight, or, what happens when I get hurt? What if they don't have the equipment available? It's in like a university gym, and like at a Lifetime, a lot of times we didn't have the equipment to really load the bar in a way I wanted to, or maybe sometimes it felt more safe than others and I felt stronger than others. So anyway, eventually I evolved to that point where I'm like, this RTS like training philosophy, it fit. It wasn't something where I was like, oh, that's interesting, I never thought about it. It's like I was thinking about something like it, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And then I found that information, and I'm like, oh my God, this is it. This is my training philosophy. I just didn't even know it,
And so then instead of stealing it and making it your own and going with your own company, you ended up deciding to join Mike and RTS.
Yeah.
So before we talk about that, I'm curious, was there kind of like an inflection point while you were kind of growing your own coaching business where it kind of hit you as, this could actually be a career? Like, this business degree I'm getting, like, this is just kind of happening, but this coaching thing I'm doing while I'm getting this degree, this thing might actually be a career.
Yeah. So I had a lot of belief in myself early on, because I figured if I can get on a Skype call and get someone to pay me money through a PayPal link, like as an 18-year-old, I'm so excited for me to have some age-based authority, like no one's gonna even know it's possible. I'm doing this. I was doing this daily, getting on calls with 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, like 25-year-olds, whatever, just telling them that I'm a coach and then I can help them. And they're like, yeah, okay, well, how much does it cost? Oh, it costs this much. And here's my link. And if you sign up right now, like, we can get started. I'll get your program tomorrow. Like, I was like, this is going to be a business. I don't know if it'll sustain me. It needs to. This is the thing that's going to. I don't know how. I don't know how to make it sustainable. I know I can get the money, but do I have the time? So 2 years later, 2 years of like doing my own thing was when I had like like you said, an inflection point where I'm like, okay, this is going to be my career, but my current business scheduling and my current processes, it's not going to be a career because I am strapped for time like crazy. I'm doing all this stuff that I'm not even sure is efficient. I have no feedback from anyone but my clients. Like there's no learning that's happening other than like my own blind judgment. And especially once I got over that like initial point in the Dunning-Kruger curve, you know, after I realized like, wait, there's more to this. There's a lot of, you know, higher level training ideas that would be really nice to kind of either develop on my own or learn from someone who already has. Because right now I had like 2 years in, I had 15 clients, but like half of them were only paying me like 50 to 70 bucks a month. And I think I was making like $1,500 a month at that point, which for a college kid, I mean, I was working in my dorm room. Like I had money for what I needed and more. And I was like, okay, so $1,500 a month, I can afford rent. I had my own apartment. Like my parents weren't paying for it. I was paying for everything pretty much other than, you know, school. And I was like, okay, I just need to make this better. So there's literally this point where I knew I needed to improve, and there were two directions I was going to go in. I was either going to expand my company and add coaches and use like, not use, but like if I have more coaches who are really into this, and they're younger or like want to intern, or I can teach them my philosophy and then I can learn from theirs as they develop. That could be one way. Or I join the company that I'm certain I align with their values already. Like this is my philosophy anyway. Like there's nothing I didn't disagree with like anything. It was like, yeah, that all makes sense intuitively, and I want to work for them if I could. And I remember I was reaching out to a lot of coaches and I was asking them if they wanted either to work with me, like younger kids, you know, basically people my age that were in powerlifting. And I had 3 people that were like, yeah, man, I'd love to help you. I'll join your Facebook group. As like an assistant coach, I'll intern. You know, I'd love to learn from you and take that opportunity. And I was like, sweet. So I did that for a little bit, and then I still kind of doubted it. I wasn't confident in the growth of that, and I didn't really. I had 2 years. You know, at that point, I had 2 years left of college, and I needed to be making enough money to not only like sustain myself, but like live on my own and not make my parents think that I needed another job. Like I didn't want another job. I wanted only this to be my job. And I had only had one other job before that, and that was as a caddy. I carried golf bags for rich people, right? I'm like, I don't want to work for a company. I mean, I don't want to work for a corporation. I don't want to go to an office. Like there's zero chance I want to do that. That makes me want to like cry thinking about it. I have nightmares about it. So that summer when I was, you know, I'd kind of been having a few coaches like learn from me and maintained all my clients, you know, I was like, man, I think I want to start working for another company and join their team and have a bunch of experienced coaches that I can learn from instead of like having younger kids learn from me. Cause I don't know, I feel like that'll be better. I actually reached out to like 7 different coaching companies because at the time there were a few bodybuilding coaching companies that I really respected and 2 or 3 powerlifting coaching companies. And I reached out to all of them, and except for RTS actually, because I didn't think that was even a possibility. I mean, Mike's not super active on YouTube. He wasn't very active on Facebook. I'm like, nah, whatever. But I got rejected, and a lot of people didn't even respond to me from the other companies. And the ones who did said the only way I'd work for them is if I were to get a master's of exercise science, like pursue a master's of exercise science. And I'm like, you want me to go to school for 6 more years just so I can work for your online coaching company? Like, no, I'll do my own thing. I'm already doing it. I mean, they just had a standard. Other people were actively lying about that because they wanted to like seem like exclusive, which I found out later. But anyway, I got rejected by everyone, and I'm like, okay, this is the decision point. You know, am I gonna keep going, or I'm gonna reach out to one more person? And I reached out to Mike at like 1 a.m. in a summer night before going into my third year of university. And I was like, I remember I was typing the email and I'm like, I'm going to put full effort into this email. I'm going to make sure that he knows what's on the line. So I know I'm jumping ahead here, but is it cool if I keep going?
Yeah, dude, keep going, man.
So I was writing this email and I was like, what does he need to know about me? Because this guy, Mike, I've seen him on Facebook. He's seen me post on Facebook. I added all these people in the fitness industry on my Facebook as like friends, and we weren't friends yet. But he was also just kind of more reserved online for a while. And but I know he'd seen me posting things and active. And anyway, I said something like, hey, Mike, Jim Elli here. You know, I've been reaching out to some coaching companies, and no, I don't think I said that. That wouldn't have been good for me. I think I said, I'm an online powerlifting coach. I've been doing this for 2.5 years. It's pretty much what I want to do until I die. I don't know why, but it's what I want to do. I don't really have any other like plans to do anything else. I've been, like I said, I have my own business. I have my own YouTube channel, and I really think I can help your company grow. I can start out as an intern. I can do whatever it is that you need. If you need help with video, if you need help with like marketing, if you need help with Instagram, social media, whatever, I can do that. The only thing I need from you is to learn. I want to learn, I want to grow, and I want to become the best coach that I can be. And I'm going to do that with you or without you. And that's effectively how I worded the email. It was very much like, this is what's the situation. Because, you know, I didn't have any other options. Like, my parents were on my ass. I remember my mom was like, well, what if you put your energy into like this, you know, corporation? Like, I just feel like your energy is being wasted. And I was like, wasted? I'm working with people. You know, I get to work with people every day that in their lives are, you know, in my mind, I think they're changing for the better. I'm not going to get that from a marketing agency, you know, like at least not directly. I won't get that personal validation. Maybe I'll get a raise from my boss, but then I'd be dependent on him for, you know, whether or not I'm doing well. Like, I want my clients to say, you're either need to improve or you're kicking ass, because then I'll do it, you know? So then 2 weeks later, he emails me. Whoa, Mike Tucherer just emailed me.
You had that celebrity moment. You're like, oh God.
Yeah, like for anyone listening, it would be like if Goldman, okay, I'm gonna sound like an idiot. Who owns Goldman Sachs? Goldman Sachs, is that what it is?
Yeah, the investment bank. I think Lloyd Blankfein is still the CEO.
So in my mind, it was like if Lloyd Blankfein, is that his name?
Yeah, I think that's how you pronounce it. But yeah.
Emailed me and was like, hey man, you maybe can work for us. Like, like, you know, like, holy crap. So he said, I remember he said, hey Jim, thanks for messaging me. I read through it, and I just want to say, like, I don't think I have an internship available, but I'm not necessarily rejecting your offer. I was like, wow, that's ambiguous. You know, what does that mean? But he wasn't rejecting me, and that was huge in my mind. Like, he was just saying, I want to talk to you. Actually, he said, let's get on a call and talk about this more. I was like, I get to talk to Mike Tucherer on the phone? Like, holy crap, you know? And I was like, okay. And so, funny enough, the actual initial call happened as I was moving back into college, my third year. So it's my junior year of college. And I remember I got on the phone with him, and I was so nervous. I was shaking, and I had to really control myself and just, hey man, you know, like, hey. And I'm like, I muted my phone. And I'm like hyperventilating. And he's like, hey Jim, you know, good to see you, good to talk to you. And I'm like, yeah, you too. And he's like, so like, how you doing? And, you know, we had a kind of a conversation, and then at some point he was like, so before we kind of get into this, one of the questions that I have for you is like, why are you interested in coaching? Like, what is it about coaching that makes you want to do it over anything else? And I was like, well, I mean, obviously I would be lying if I said it wasn't for the money. Like, you know, I wouldn't be doing it over everything else if it wasn't going to pay my bills. And I was like, it's not yet sustainable, but I think it can be. And I love it. And I love the validation from it. I love seeing results from the clients I'm working with. I love how it feels when they succeed at a competition or hit a PR in the gym. And like, genuinely, I mean every bit of that, as much as I almost mean that more now, because it's like, it is my life. It's everything in my life right now. But back then, that's what I told him. And I'm like, yeah, just up front, I want both. I like it for both. And he's like, okay, that's pretty honest and understandable. And I think he was kind of looking for that, because I think a lot of people in that situation would be like, I don't do it for the money. I just want, results from people, and just altruistic as hell and whatever. And I'm not purely altruistic. Like, obviously there's a benefit for me. I'm very aware of the benefit, but in my mind, the benefit's mutually beneficial for me and the lifter. Otherwise they wouldn't work with me anymore. So anyway, he's like, okay, so sounds like he thought about that for a while. And I was like, was that good enough? Did I say the right thing? And he was like, yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to jump ahead too much, but I think the first thing we need to do is get you a client and see what you need to work on. And I'm like, wait, so like you want me to be a client, have a client? He's like, yeah, I just feel like an internship. I'd want you to be paid for your work. And I'm like, you're going to pay me? He's like, yeah, I don't like internships. I don't like free internships. I think it's like, I just don't think it makes sense, because I want you to learn. And if I want to get the most out of you, you're going to probably want to be paid for it. I'm like, yeah, sounds good. What does that mean? He's like, well, I'll call you back in 2 days or something, or like next week, and we'll get like an NDA signed, and we'll get started. And I was like, what the fuck? How did I do that?
Just like that. Wow.
Yeah, dude, honestly, it was like Christmas in September. I was like, oh my God, my life is changing. And then to be fair, like, it's just crazy, because there's no, I don't know. I didn't know at the moment, like, there's 5 people working for RTS. I'm 18. I was 19, turning 20 that month. And he's like, yeah, here's a shot. I'm like, imposter syndrome, let me tell you, it started to creep in quickly after that moment.
Yeah, that's a big Cinderella moment there.
Yeah, man, it's crazy, because I don't know. It was like, I knew I didn't have a reason. It was like, why me? But also, I so happy. Like, I'm just so pumped to have this opportunity. And that's when the real learning came from, because now I'm representing a company. Now it's not about me and my brand, because if my brand fails, it's on me. And like, I don't have, whatever. It's no one else's hurt but me. But now that I was having this opportunity to represent RTS, it was like, well, now I have to be careful about how do I put myself out there. Like, I got to be careful about my message, and is it still in alignment with the company's message? Because I didn't really know I knew what the message was. That's why it worked so well, was because it wasn't like I had a lot of like, he didn't seem like I was getting pulled into the right lane. It just seemed like he trusted that the lane I was in was one that would help the company already. And, because he'd obviously seen my posts and how I talk about training and stuff like that. So, but I still had that feeling of, I don't want to mess this up, and I don't want to make RTS look bad. But I was super into expressing myself still. So it's really difficult for a while, because I was transitioning from being a business owner to a like intern status employee at this other company. I mean, it wasn't intern, but basically just 0 clients at that company. So it was weird. It was a weird transition for a while, because I had to like decide, like, I had to try to get other clients that I was working with, if they wanted to stay with me, if they wanted to move to RTS. And I had to figure out what my role was, because instead of making content every day, I just had to be a good coach. And I was also editing the content that Mike was already making, because that was kind of part of the deal. Was I was going to help with the YouTube channel and help it grow. And I created the Instagram and help that grow. And I just had to be much more cautious and think more like, how would Mike do this? It was really weird, because when I started, man, you wouldn't want to work with me when I started. Well, maybe you would, but I wouldn't want to work with me, because I was much more, I think, not polarizing, but I don't know if ignorance is the word either, but I didn't know what I was doing, and compared to how I feel about myself now. and I was a lot more learning going on. And I was also much more emotional in terms of like how I responded to things. I was much more anxious about, like if someone got hurt. I remember one day I was like driving somewhere. I think I was like driving from my apartment to the gym, and I got like this message from one of my clients, and they felt some pain in their back. And now it's an RTS client, right? So I felt super responsible. And I'm like, oh God. So I remember I drove back home, adjusted their program like 15 minutes later with like a rehab protocol that they weren't even going to be able to do that day because they had already left. But in my mind, I'm like, I need to fix this. I need to fix this. I need to fix this. And I remember telling Mike, and he's like, look, man, I appreciate how quick you are with this, but injury and rehab is not like speed doesn't necessarily mean improvement. Like, and the fact that you're anxious and showing it probably isn't going to help them feel calm about it. Because if you're calm, then they're probably going to be more calm. If you're like, oh crap, I got to go back and fix all your programming decision or your program for right now, it might make them feel like it's a worse, more severe issue. And anyway, the point is that everything became a bit more sensitive for a while, and I was less like laissez-faire or whatever, like just a bit less blasé, I guess, about myself, because it was much more I had more of an influence. I was more influenced by RTS, and I had a lot of reshaping of my personality to make sure it was going to fit in the long run.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned how, like, even right now you are the marketing manager for RTS, and when you first started your coaching business, a lot of it seems like a lot of your time was actually also spent on building content, the YouTube side, constantly posting on like bodybuilding.com, the Facebook groups as well. How much of that do you think factored into Mike's decision of like bringing you on, like this completely different content side that isn't technically coaching, but it was like a huge part of like what you were also like building on the side as well?
I mean, if I were to look at it right now, knowing what I know, I think it was a huge ad for him, because I was basically going to be doing that work for free. It was like he needed someone to edit the videos, and Mike he's really really creative. But the tech side of stuff, in terms of like YouTube and like getting 4K video and clear audio and all this stuff, like it's valuable to him. But his thing is like some content is better than no content, and I think my focus is more like good content is good content, and it's going to require effort and time and some annoyances sometimes, and expenses in that direction. And I think it's been paying off, I think, like in terms of where the direction of the YouTube channel has gone, and like keeping up with the times. Because Mike was just uploading from his phone and doing like Windows Movie Maker edits to post to YouTube, and it's like that could have probably gotten him. I think it got him as far as it could have, in terms of like, once YouTube decided that it was only going to really show videos that were being watched for a long time, we couldn't post a video like that and get any attraction. So I think for me to have that growing role was really, really valuable for him.
Mm-hmm. And now that you've been a coach for with RTS for what, close, you said like 6 years ish, right?
Well, it's weird because in my mind it's been like 7 years, but I tell him that story that happened when I was 19, turned 20 that September, and I'm 24 in 6 months now.
Okay.
So 5 years about.
Yeah. And so then, can you kind of share with my audience like what the life of a coach is like? Like what does your week look like? What's your schedule like this week to give people like a glimpse of what a remote online coach does?
Well, it's funny because for a while I had much less of a role. Like I was a manager, like I did marketing stuff, but I didn't think about it much, because it's like, if Mike doesn't really care that much, I don't care that much. And then I was like, okay, well he was like, hey, I want you to do more. Like I want you to be the marketing manager of the company. And that means that there's more responsibility on like getting leads and getting sales and getting people interested in our company and like more the metric focused stuff. And if the metrics were good, like obviously he's happy. I mean, at the end of the day, if we're making money, he's happy. But I needed to get creative and make sure I was combining the like time I was investing into marketing and making sure it wasn't impacting like how well I'm doing with coaching. Because at the end of the day, we're a coaching company first. So it took me a while. I mean, there was definitely a period where once I really transitioned into like video editing and prioritizing that, I had to actually make a schedule, because before I didn't have a schedule. I just did the same thing every day, and a lot of it was based on feel, and it was a lot more reactionary. Like if someone messaged me, I'd message them back, and it was a lot more anxiety inducing, not knowing that I had not having a schedule. And now I do have a schedule. I have days of the week have specific tasks, and there's specific hours in which I coach and specific hours in which I'm like editing videos, for example. So like I don't know how specific you want me to get,
or
but
I guess like an easy way is like, if let's say you were to like bucket percentage of time into like different activities. So, like, I don't know, maybe like 30% of your time is talking with clients, and like 30% else is like programming, and I don't know, 20% is like editing. Like that kind of, if I gave you like that kind of framework, how would you bucket everything?
I would say coaching is 50% of my time. Editing videos and like market development is 35%. And then what do I have left? 25% or 15%?
15%, yeah.
Yeah, I would say 15% is like actually building the programs. Because the thing is, it's a one day of the week is where I'm like writing programs. The rest of that time is like making subtle modifications to like a unique lifter. And I mean, that takes, depending, like once I actually do it, it only takes a few minutes. So like time wise, it only takes a few minutes, but there's also that creative bit that's kind of included in like the coaching. So the communicating with like the lifter, like, okay, what's happening? Because I can't just make a quick decision if I don't have all the information. And I think that's the thing I've learned the most is that, let's say you have a problem and I might think, oh, if this is the problem, and then here's the solution. But I found that it's much more helpful and a little bit safer too, to make sure you ask a few more questions and help with that creative process. So yeah, that 50% of coaching is like a lot of relationship building, getting on a call if needed, and then just kind of giving feedback and technique feedback on a given lifter's session.
And if you were to look back on the kind of key lessons you learned from your, running your own coaching business and doing RTS as well, what are some of the key lessons that, if you were to start, let's say, a coaching business from scratch, like there was no RTS now, like this RTS doesn't exist, and, for some odd reason you have to start a business all over again and be a powerlifting coach. What kind of lessons from the past would you use to, like, I guess, accelerate the success of the coaching business?
There's no other companies. You're just starting your own thing.
Yeah.
I think there's a very tried and true practice here, and that is initiate your business by providing value for a potential customer without asking for anything. Because that's going to, one, tell yourself that you're comfortable with someone disagreeing with you. You put out free information. That means other people, anyone publicly, can see that this is what you think about something. And that can teach you a lot in terms of making your message good. But then it also means that anyone can see you. So if you're having issues with starting, well, you need eyes on you. If you don't have any eyes on you, it's hard to ask for money. It's hard to ask for them to pay you something. And it's very difficult for them to see your value. So establishing that like initial, I'm going to put out content. I'm going to talk about things that I care about, and I'm going to show my prospective client what I can provide for them in a way that is from the heart. I think a lot of people try to start and they're so scared of being wrong that they just say something that someone else said. So I think, I mean, and I did that too when I first started, and then it's like there's no traction because I wasn't providing actual help. I was just kind of being a parrot. And then once I really shifted into like, this is actually the experiences that I've had. This thing about like nutrition has really helped me to lose 5 pounds. It can probably help you, or this, and then eventually you get a client. And now it's, this thing has helped my client lose 5 pounds. I think it can help you. And then you can slowly build that, authority in a given field. And even if there isn't one that exists, so like in a blue ocean, like, here's the thing that I think is valuable to people. You can talk about it, and then you can see, is it valuable? Is it as valuable as I think? And if you start out thinking, I'm just going to start asking people for money, it's going to be a lot harder, just because there's going to be a lot more hurdles you'll have to jump through. And unless you're like really good at sales, I find that to be less appealing.
Yeah. So then do you find that, or I guess like, I'm going to guess that a lot of people come up to you and ask like, hey Jim, how do I start a coaching business? I want to be a powerlifting coach as well. So would you say that that's along the lines of the advice that you give to those people? Like, create content first, like add value somehow?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, if it's like right now, I think it's a bit more difficult because there are so many people. But the thing is, like, you just need enough people to support you for your goals. You don't have to be like, when I started, again, I didn't have to be the best coach ever. I just had to find someone who I could help that wanted help from me. And I think, just start with, I think the best way to grow is to think about what's slightly more difficult than what you're currently capable of. Because then that forces you to improve your skills, and also forces you to educate yourself more so that you can tackle that thing. So like when I started, I was working with a lot of Gen Pop people, and then I transitioned into like powerlifting. Well, what did I need to do to become a better powerlifting coach? I needed to start competing, because I need to know what this experience is like so I can give feedback to lifters who are going to start working with me. Because I can't just be like, yeah, well, powerlifting is kind of like this because I read about it on YouTube, or listened to it on YouTube. Like, I needed to have done it. So I initially put myself out there, and then I competed a bunch of times early on until I got hurt all the time. But I had like 5 competitions back to back to back, and that helped a lot with experience. And so like experience matters too. Knowledge is valuable, but if you don't have experience applying that knowledge, well, who cares? And the imposter syndrome thing is important too. Like, I know plenty of more than capable people, but they're so afraid to put themselves out there that they just say no. And so I think, again, one of those ways to get around it is help people and find people that you can help, and that are like people that you've helped before.
No, that's solid advice. And on the other side, like, I think we talked about a lot of the cool sides of coaching. What's some of the unglamorous parts of being a coach that you think people just completely, I guess, don't see?
I think mostly like it's isolating. Being an online coach, or like an online business owner in general, I think can be very isolating because, yeah, I work for myself for the most part. I mean, technically I work for Mike, but my clients don't care what Mike thinks about what I am doing. My clients care about what I'm doing, so I have to set my own schedule. I have to compartmentalize a lot of things in my life. I don't know if it's any different than like a normal job, but I just know that at first it might feel like this super freeing job where you're just, on the beach working. It's like, I've never been to a beach where they had Wi-Fi. So like, I need to spend all this money to get good Wi-Fi, and, I got to spend money to get like the equipment that I need to make videos. I need to invest a lot of time, energy, and resources into learning things that, may or may not actually produce a result for me. And so like on top of isolation, there's a lot more risk because everything you do, you have skin in the game. Whereas, you kind of have skin in the game at like a bigger firm, and that like you need to have a result. But I think there's also a lot more guidance, and in that, like, here's what we've done in the past that has worked. With like something like coaching, powerlifting, there's not many people who actually know what to do. A lot of it is creative. A lot of it is sitting down, thinking that you're an idiot, that this thing that you're going to come up with is like wild, and Like, you don't really have much support. You just got to believe in yourself. And like, I love that part about it, because when it does work, you feel like you've actually helped and you've done something very personal with that person. Like, I took my actual thoughts, taking the information I have, putting everything together, communicating with the lifter, and making the best decision to help them with the information you have. And like, but that all is hidden with being alone for a long time, like just being in your room, writing programs for, hours. And, on top of that, like marketing is valuable. You can't just rely on word of mouth if you want to expand. Like, yeah, you can rely on word of mouth if you want to get yourself better. But when you're working with other people, you got to be aware of what is the message that you're putting out for all the other coaches and the other people a part of the team. So yeah, I think the isolation bit is probably like the darkest part. And if you don't have a schedule, you can really let it consume everything. So it's something I've been working on a lot the last, year or so, is how can I have a bit more balance and save my mental health a little bit better than, being in constant like anxiety, like being attached to your phone and thinking that every second that you don't spend on your phone is $1 lost or something like that,
Yeah, no, I can definitely relate with that sentiment for sure. Like, especially since I've been doing this remote thing for the last year or so, and yeah, like that aloneness is definitely real. And yeah, like it's I find like it's always tough for coaches where, like, even when I study like strength literature, a lot of it's empirical, right? It's just based on like, if you're lucky, you get like 20 years of data from a certain number of lifters, but a lot of times it's like maybe one Olympic cycle for strength development or something like that. And so then, but when you have a coach, like, I'm guilty of this too. Like when I worked with you, like earlier on, when, I kind of just like, I just assume like Jim's got to have the answers. He's got to know that this is going to work or not. But I think the reality is like, nobody knows. It's just, you have to try a bunch of things, and you think based on some development of like biology and all the stuff that it can translate to strength development.
Yeah. And I mean, in that specific context, like that's the scariest thing is like, these are the ideas I have, and like, it's all on me, like, I mean, I'm at the point where I don't even believe a lot of other coaches because they talk with these certainties, and it's like, you don't actually coach anyone. There's so many people in the field that are just throwing advice in the air, and it makes it seem like we have answers. And it's like, we don't. We have ideas that we can test, and that's it. Like, there's no biological mechanism that we can currently prove to be the reason why you're getting stronger. And even if we did, there's some people that won't work for. So it's like, I can try and I want to, and here's what I have about you, but like, there's almost endless permutations of what could work, and what if we don't do the right one in the right amount of time? And I'm like, oh god, so that that thought process can get pretty crazy. And there's ways we can kind of get closer to that target, but especially with people, especially like in your situation, like the more variables that you have in your life that are potentially limiting what's going on, like, I don't work with a lot of business owners, but when I do, it's like the stress of that thing is usually pretty high. So like managing the other side, and like the best athletes are like athletes first always, and it's like they don't do anything else. That doesn't necessarily mean that those are the people who always respond the best, but like, there's so many variables even that I can't always control with like a program. But it's kind of what makes it fun. And that if coaching got so simple that a machine could do it, then I'd be out of a job, and two, it would no longer be fun. But that's what's great about it, is that you're working with individuals with varying lives and lifestyles, and my job is to try to match that with the goals that they set out for themselves. And yeah, that's the exciting part, to kind of contrast it.
Wow, I think that might actually be a pretty great place to leave this interview off at. I think you kind of summed up the great fulfillment of coaching just now.
Yeah.
But Jim, before we like kind of close off, is there anything you wish we'd kind of touched upon that we didn't get to cover today?
I think that there are as much as there is that isolation to doing your own thing, if you do your own thing and you start seeing success with it, there's so much more power in, like, I feel so much less anxiety about what I'm doing, because even though, powerlifting coaching might not be like saving the Amazon rainforest, it is one of the few things in my life where, I am having a direct positive impact on others. And, I talked about money all the time, but like, that isn't even, I mean, genuinely, that's just, I'm just happy that people are care about it enough. But if people didn't care about it, it wouldn't be worth it. If people didn't care when they hit their next PR, then it would be like, okay, cool, glad we're doing this. So it's like that emotional connection that I kind of developed with a lot of lifters, and then also the freedom that knowing I'm having a positive contribution on the world. Not a lot of us have an opportunity to really add positive, like, energy or positive value. And I think if we can all find that thing that makes us feel alive and valuable, and not necessarily just elevating your own ego, but like, how can I help this person next to me? How can I help these people I'm working with? That's where the true, like, freedom comes. It's not in working on a beach with your laptop because you're your business owner.
Well said. That's a good way to put it. All right, Jim. Cool. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your story with myself and my listeners. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I had a blast.
All right, awesome. Take care. All right, thank you for listening to the podcast. I hope the story was inspiring to you. Hopefully it also helped you expand your perspectives. Hopefully it also made you question the default path that you might have been going on, or the default beliefs you might have had. And maybe now it'll make you even think about doing something about it, doing something different, maybe challenging yourself, being courageous. Who knows? But regardless, I'm really happy that you took some time out of your day to listen to this fantastic story with my guest. And if you would like to somehow, in some way, contribute and help support the podcast, and maybe even just be part of the community that I'm trying to build with the greater OMD Ventures platform, really think about being a stakeholder in the platform. And the quick way to do that is to go to my website, oldmandan.com, and go to the stakeholders page. I believe it's oldmandan.com/stakeholder. And the link is also down below. And that's how you can figure out how you can subscribe, follow to get more updates on the free content, but at the same time also donate by actually just buying me a coffee. That's just how I put it. And you can buy me a coffee a month, coffee a week, or coffee every day of the year. And think about it as the way that, if you wanted to chat with me, you might just bring me out for coffee and buy me a coffee. Or if you wanted to bring one of my guests out to chat, you might buy them a coffee. So just think of it as I'm the service that's doing that for you, so you can just pay me in coffees. Don't worry, everything will still be free. It would just really help if you would like to show your support this way, so that I can use the coffee money to buy myself actual coffees, and also to buy my guests actual coffees, and use the leftover money to actually grow the platform, as well as even keep it operationally alive as well, because all this isn't really free, and it does take a lot of time to build it as well as operate it and hopefully grow it further. So your support would be amazing if you would like to contribute. And so just check out the website, go to the stakeholders page, and read the different kind of benefits you might even get as a stakeholder. All right, thank you.